The Northern Railroad's builders understood the value of the St. Lawrence River, envisioning a Great Lakes to Boston through route. By 1850, tracks were laid across the top of New York State, connecting the St. Lawrence with Rouses Point on Lake Champlain.
When the railroad came, 1850, and they built huge warehouses, and they were so busy in shipping coal, and they did a lot of feed. That's why they had the elevator. They brought the wheat and corn from the west.
This railroad weathered several ownerships, lease agreements, and identities during its first few decades, before the comfortable Ogdensburg and Lake Champlain name took hold. Central Vermont Railroad's 26-year lease began in 1870. Then came the Rutland Railroad's 1899 purchase.
Everybody talked about the railroad in Rouses Point. It was the center of all railroad activity in this area. It was a moving and grooving place early in the 20th century and for a long, long time.
That was a good, interesting place because you dealt with traffic from the CN and the Central Vermont and Napierville Junction, D&H and Rutland. And that was a very busy place. It seemed there was always somebody running papers from one railroad to the other, or investigating freight claims, or whatever. And it was always a busy place. And of course, you always dealt with customs there too.
You can't believe in the wintertime how cold it is. And it's flat up there. And the wind blows all the time. And they have a lot of snow up there.
There would be times where they would actually get trains stuck, and they would have to hire some of the local farmers to come and shovel the train out to get it loose.
That was bad territory in the winter. You had to run plows, and the sectionmen sure earned their money up there.
Frozen journal boxes and other cold weather calamities could easily turn a routine trip into a 16-hour icy nightmare.
The Sheridan Iron Works actually started in 1835 in New York City, and the founding father was Bernard Sheridan. They ended up coming to Champlain, New York in 1887.
They used to handle all the fuel for the factory there, which was coal and coke basically. And they also used to transport large machinery out of there because they made bindery equipment, and some of it was extremely large machinery.
I really enjoyed hearing the old steam engines, and I just loved looking out my window or listening from my window to the trains as they rolled by on the track, and the great sound, I always thought.
It gains quite a bit of elevation going from Rouses Point heading up to Moores and points west.
This Lake Champlain to St. Lawrence rail corridor traverses hilly country, so minimizing grades was important. James Hayward's engineering and survey crews met the challenge with a system of so-called reverse curves to reach the summit east of Churubusco. These deviations began northeast of Altona, allowing for easier, smoother navigation in both directions.
Chateaugay, real important town on the Rutland, and a busy town. They had a passenger agent in the station, but they also had a freight agent in the freight house because there was not much work there. The biggest customer was the milk plant, and they brought milk in and shipped milk out, but mainly what they shipped out of there was condensed milk.
And when we got to Malone, that was quite an impressive railroad station there in Malone.
An elegant twin-towered passenger station graced Malone's downtown district in 1865. Families, businessmen, celebrities, circus and county fair performers called on this stately structure for 84 years. Hotel Flanagan was conveniently situated a few steps away.
Malone, bustling place. Malone is a place where the shoppers came in, creamery there. We would get passengers that would ride those trains between those small towns and go over one way and come back on the other, go over on 7 and come back on 8, maybe to do short business.
That office where the tickets are was open 24 hours a day.
My grandfather and his brother moved to Norwood in 1922. They were both barbers. And the reason they moved to town, from what they told my uncle, was that they came to Norwood because it was a boom town. You don't hear that phrase anymore, but it was because of the 3 railroads that met here. Norwood did have a lot of business. They had the paper mills, they had cement mills, they had casket factories. There was a lot of business here at the turn of the century.
The Rutland and New York Central economized with shared facilities. An engine house, turntable, water, and coaling facilities serve locomotives and crews through the steam era.
Ogdensburg was a terminal for the Rutland on the ONLC. It was the last deep water port before Montreal.
Ogdensburg, lovely city, and a place where the brakemen laid over on the milk train.
I think the most interesting time in Ogdensburg was probably when they had the lake steamers. That was very interesting to think that they actually interchanged Great Lakes and railroad traffic there.
Of course, the Rutland had their grain elevator there. The ships would come in with either corn or grain or wheat and would store it.
No other job in the world that is like the railroad, and especially a telegrapher and an operator. The people you meet and everything in general, it gets in your skin and it stays there. It's almost like somebody's religion. That is, you just love it.
The ONLC was a special place, the outpost of the system, where labor laws, sometimes seen as silly and outdated, didn't stand in the way of getting the job done. What happened on the ONLC stayed on the ONLC, and co-workers had each other's backs. This business went from bustle to bust in 1961. An employee strike marked the final blow. Railroad management then petitioned to abandon. Most of the ONLC, 93 miles from the shore of Lake Champlain to East Switch at Norwood Junction, was lifted during 1965. Cars are retrieved and dropped off before the Noggy crew leaves former Norwood and St. Lawrence iron for a sentimental journey over 25 miles of ONLC. The Racket River has been spanned by this unique bridge since 1899. Double-wide stone abutments testify to the builder's ambitions of a 2-track main line, never realized. The last Rutland Railway agent, Milton King, locked its doors on September 20th, 1960.
We got a grant from the state, which allowed us to refinish the floors and walls. Anyone who comes in here can see an eclectic collection of things that have been given to us about local matters, railroad matters, and agricultural matters.
Russ Nelson cycles, walks, and bushwhacks discarded roadbed across the top of New York. The Potsdam residents' website, russnelson.com, tracks the ghosts of the ONLC and connecting railroads.
there's a link off of russnelson.com called Bicycling the Rutland Northern Division. And I have a map on that page which shows all of what I have bicycled and what I have not bicycled. And pretty much at this point, anything that I have not ridden is not rideable. If you want to find an old rail bed in anywhere across northern New York, find the Agway.